Hey everybody, I'm Tema. I just wanted to record a little video talking about my step 1 experience. I know a lot of you are probably getting back your step scores, and if you pass, congratulations. But there's like the side of things that people don't often talk about, which is failing step. So I took step in March 2021, and fortunately I did not pass the first time I took it. So I think I just wanted to talk about that and just help say like how I got through things, in case it helps somebody else, because again, this is something that we don't often talk about. All right, so backstory. And if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my phone because I just want to make sure I remembered everything. So again, I started medical school in July 2019. I was fresh out of college, like 2 weeks after finishing college, moved to Ohio to start medical school, did the pre-matriculation program, that whole thing. I felt like I struggled all of preclinical years. We have an accelerated curriculum here at my school. We also don't have lectures. We have like the pure instruction TBL style. And I just felt like I wasn't able to learn at all. I felt like I was drowning and I was just trying to stay afloat. Like I really felt like every day was a battle and I was constantly feeling defeated, because I just wasn't doing as well as I would have hoped. Like we all know med school is hard, but like I was struggling. So by the time it came down to dedicated, which was about February 2021, I was just overwhelmed. I was very overwhelmed. I felt like I didn't know anything. I knew little facts here and there, but overall I did not know a thing. So I felt like I spent the next like 6 weeks miserable. I was crying almost every day trying to get through UWorld questions and like blocks and getting like 30-40% on blocks, sometimes even lower. It just was not a good time at all. It was a horrible time for me, and it didn't help that like Ohio is dark that time of year. The sun goes down like 4 p.m. It's cold, so even to like get outside to like, you know, clear your head, you really can't do that. And so it was just like me and my cats alone in my apartment studying for this exam, that I felt was ruining my life. And like my mental health was deteriorating during dedicated. It really deteriorated, and like thank God for my psychiatrist at the time, because like it was not a good time. So getting through February, it's into March 2021, and originally my test date was for March 5th, but because I didn't pass or get like the minimum score that our school wanted for our practice step exam, I had to take a retake on March 5th. So my exam was March 10th, so I moved it to March 10th. Sat for the practice exam, felt miserable again. Then as the days were dwindling towards my test date, I just felt horrible. I felt absolutely like trash. But people kept saying like, oh, I didn't do well on NBMEs, I didn't do well on like UWorld blocks, and I still passed step 1, so like you'll be fine. And like I did not pass a single NBME studying for step, but people kept saying that they were still able to pass and they never passed a NBME. So I thought, okay, maybe I didn't pass a UWorld question, like I was not passing. But I was so exhausted. I was so exhausted. So our school has a like 2-week boot camp before we start clerkships, and they kind of had a deadline that like they wanted you to take step 1 by that point. If not, you would have to basically push off starting 3rd year, and it was just a whole mess. So I did not want to keep studying. I was tired. I was emotionally tired. I was emotionally, physically, mentally exhausted studying for step 1. So I decided I'm just going to take step 1 on March 10th and leave it up to God, honestly. And so I went, took the exam, and as much as everyone says that they feel like they failed when they took step 1, I truly in my spirit know I failed. I knew I failed. Like, I started to feel nauseous, like lightheaded. I felt horrible. Like, I felt very prodromal during my last block of step 1. And that was it. And I left the test center and I just felt horrible. I felt absolutely trash. And so then the next week we had to start boot camp for clerkships, and that was the year, like last year for some reason, like around that time they had started giving out step scores within like 2 weeks, probably because of like the aftermath of COVID and everything, people having to schedule during the pandemic. But we didn't know that at the time. Did not know I'd be getting my score back that soon. So we were in boot camp. I was getting ready to go to our delivering bad news SPE, and I got the email that step scores were out, and I just felt like my stomach drop. So I opened up the email, and so saw that, and I already knew I didn't pass. I just knew it. But I opened up, of course, the website, looked at my score, and it said fail. And I just started sobbing. And I called my friend, who, God bless her, called her. She immediately came over, and she was helping me like call assistant deans at the time to just try to figure things out. And it was very much a like, we'll figure out how to move on from here. For now, go do your SPE. So I had to like pull it together to go do an SPE about delivering bad news. Meanwhile, I had just gotten bad news. And I just took the time in the days afterwards to just cry. I felt sorry for myself. I felt so sorry for myself. But I was scheduled to have a meeting with the assistant deans on that Saturday afterwards. And so I was like, okay, let me reach out to people on Twitter and ask what people did to study for step 1 if they had to retake. Because I know I can't do what I did the first time. I can't. I'm not going to repeat that, because that was a miserable time. And so I had heard about like 2 different like test prep things that people had done, and one I heard a lot more than the other one. And so when I went and had a meeting with the assistant deans on that Saturday, I was like, okay, one, I would love to be able to take a clerkship first before going back into studying for STEP, because that was an option they had given me to think about, which I immediately was like, yes, but they were like, think about it. And I was like, and for my preparing like in advance for my retake, I had been hearing about like PASS program. What have y'all heard about it? And they were like, oh yeah, we've had people take it and they passed. And I was like, bet. I will figure that out and do that. And so I basically reached out to PASS program, reached out to Dr. Francis, who's the person who runs it, and he was great. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. But so yeah, so I started 3rd year, and I started with my first rotation of family medicine. And I think the big rationale that I was given for why they suggested I do a clerkship was because they wanted me to remember why I came to med school. And I think I also needed to remember why I came to med school, which was to take care of people, not to study for STEP, not to be inundated with like tests and exams and everything, but like I came to medical school because I care about people, as like cliche as that sounds, but that's truly why I came. If you're somebody who follows me on Twitter, you know I'm applying family medicine. So, but I did not start clerkships thinking I wanted to do family. I thought I wanted to do OB coming into medical school, then realized like I don't think OB is what I want for my life. And then I thought maybe psychiatry, but then I was like, oh, I wish there was like a combination residency of like OB and psych. And then somebody was like, that's literally family medicine where you can do all of those things. Don't be dumb. And I was like, I don't know. And like I have a mentor that had been telling me since undergrad, she was like, I don't see you doing any other specialty but family. And I was always like, yeah, like leave me alone. But so I started my family rotation, and it was amazing. It was amazing. Like I can probably talk about it more in like a different video of like why I chose family medicine, but ultimately it was an amazing rotation, and I needed that mental break. Like, yes, I was working hard, but I wasn't studying for an exam. I wasn't studying for STEP. I was just taking care of patients, learning, actually like seeing the pathologies that I'd learned in learning class, and like learned on UWorld in person. And I think that really helped me, but I was not formally studying for STEP during that time. And so I did the 6 weeks of family, and then after that I started the PASS program. The PASS program, basically, to give a rundown of it if you've never heard about it, it's a test prep, if you will, to study for Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, COMLEX, boards. Like, people would use it, and they had different options that were either you go to Peoria, Illinois, and go there and in person for 5 weeks, 5 or 12 weeks. You can do the like live online, like Zoom class for 5 weeks or 12 weeks, or you can just do like the on-demand videos they had. Since your girl has 3 cats and I didn't know who else would watch them, I was like, let me just do the Zoom version. And like, I cannot speak highly enough about like this program. I really felt like I learned more in PASS than I had in the first like year and a half of medical school, which is sad to say because I only did 5 weeks of PASS program. But like the general format is like we'd wake up, and like, again, I'm East Coast, so like from 7:30 to about 8:30 we'd have morning questions where we either do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday we do 10 Step 1 questions either on UWorld or AMBOSS, and then we do 5 Step 2 questions, and then Tuesday, Thursday it's like 10 Step 2 questions and 5 Step 1. And it's like we do that as a class. He makes sure if you're doing a live online, he calls in people online so that you feel engaged and you don't feel like you're just passively watching. So we do that for an hour. Then we'd have class from, I would say, like 8:30, 8:45 up until like 5 p.m, which seems like a lot, but it's like you're trying to get this information into your head. They also have like a thick book that they send you like to go along with during the course, which was really good. And so yeah, you just like, we went through the class, and like each day had a different topic. We were covering like different like overall arching theme, whether it was biochemistry, cardiac phys, micro. And I just feel like the way that things were broken down was a way that was like, I want you to know the basic concept. And like Dr. Francis really harps on that. It's like, once you understand the basic concepts of things, everything else in medicine makes sense. Like, you're able to figure out other things even if you don't remember the fact off the top of your head. You're able to reason through it because you know the basic concept. And I think that's such a 180 from how, like, unfortunately we are forced to be in medicine, which is like, we have to memorize tons of facts, but then are expected to somehow break down and figure out the basic concept from those facts, when that's not how we learn. That's not how people are supposed to learn. So I did those 5 weeks. I also did like twice a week tutoring with the PASS program, and it was just like, sometimes it was just us going through UWorld questions together so that they can see how I work through questions, because like PASS will teach you how to work through questions and how to work through them in a way that's like, you don't get tripped up. You stop doubting yourself, because that's a big thing that a lot of us realize, that our guts will know the answer and we doubt it. For some reason, we just doubt ourselves. So did that 5 weeks, and I felt like I was actually like learning things. And then after that, I took another, I would say 2.5 weeks just to like review and like really take in everything that was from PASS. And like, they also suggest this. They sometimes suggest people having like another 2-3 weeks, because you go through information so quickly, to make sure like if there's anything that you still needed extra time on, to just go back and like review it a little bit, and also just like, you know, decompress from the whole class, because it moves quickly, like I said. And so then after that, in like July, I think it was like July 17th, I took STEP again, which was nerve-wracking, and I took it at a different test site than I took the first one, because I did not want to have the juju of the first time on me. So I took it, had like a week before restarting clerkships. So in total, I took off, let's say, about 10 weeks. I think I took about 10 weeks off from clerkships. I delayed my neurology rotation to 4th year and used 6 weeks of elective time in 3rd year to be able to study for STEP again. And so yeah, so then 2 weeks later, while I was in my infectious disease rotation, I found that I passed my second go around, and I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. But I also realized how traumatizing Step was, that like I literally got an email by mistake from Kaplan saying MCAT scores were coming out, and I started having palpitations. Like, this whole med-ed is traumatizing. I can talk about that later. Med-ed is very, very traumatizing. But yeah, that was basically how I got through and went through studying and like retaking Step, and like that's the whole story of it. I think the biggest things for me were like, emotionally going through this is very difficult. It's very, very difficult because medicine likes to pretend like all of us are perfect, none of us struggle, nobody fails. But like, let's be honest, like people do fail. People fail these exams, and that's just the reality of it. And the fact that we keep pretending that people don't, it doesn't help people. Like, we're already a profession that has so many issues with like mental health because of the immense amount of pressure that is put on people, right? And it's like, when we keep shaming and like being hush hush about the fact that like people struggle and people fail, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Like, I know for me, going through and thinking about like what could my future look like that I failed was horrible. It was horrible. I was so scared, like, okay, I won't be able to match, all of this will be for nothing, I'll owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Like, you start to feel like your life is over because you failed, and it's not. And you start to feel stupid and you think that you're dumb, but you're not. Like, I think that's the biggest thing that like Step 1 especially did to me, is that it made me think that I'm not intelligent. It made me doubt myself so much more than I did before. And it's like, you wouldn't be in med school if you're not smart. You wouldn't. Just because this exam you didn't pass it doesn't take away from that. And I think the biggest thing I had to work through, like after passing my Step retake, was again like rebuilding that confidence. Like, oh, I do know things. Oh, this exam said I'm dumb. Like, said I'm dumb, but I'm not. Like, I'm getting questions right when I'm asked by attendings or by residents. I know how to manage things, or at least like I know where to start, you know? So I think that's like one of the biggest things, is like you have to have that confidence. And then, like I said, it's traumatizing because studying for Step 2 was very, very traumatizing, where like I did not want to take the exam because I was so scared I would fail again. Even though I felt better during third year going through clerkships, like I felt like my clerkship year made up and surpassed everything I did in the first year and a half. I felt like I was in my element. I think my evals all said that, my evals all proved it. My evals all proved that I was really in my element, as much as I like was doubting myself. And the thing is, like, yes, I may not be able to take tests well. I'll attest to that. No pun intended. I'll attest to that. But I care about people. I care about people. And something I always said is like, me failing Step 1 is not going to be the reason I'm not a doctor. Because there are people who don't care about patients. There are people who have to be taught that, oh, you should respect people, and they're going to become doctors. So why would I not become a doctor just because of one test score? So I think that's a huge thing. And like, again, like I said, studying for Step 2, it was a lot of me trying to be like, if I could fail once, I could fail again. But I had to remember, and like I had amazing friends in my corner who really, really supported me and were like, yes, you could fail, but you could also pass. You could pass. You could pass Step 2. You could pass Step 2. And I think I had to change my mindset into that. And also, like, I did things on my own time. This is now going into how I studied for Step 2, but like a little bit, but I did not take the 2 weeks, 3 weeks that people say you need for Step 2. I think I took like 2 full months to study. Was I in clerkships during some of that time? Yeah, I was in clerkships for, I would say, at least like 6 weeks of that time. But I could not be in straight dedicated. And also I needed to give myself time to just absorb the information, absorb what like the tests wanted me to know. Because again, something y'all will learn in clerkships is that what you rolled and the AMBOSS say is the right answer and the board say the right answer is not what is done on the done on clerkships, which is annoying. So I had to learn like what is the correct answer. And so just going through studying for step 2, it was a lot of like having to remember like, okay, I made it through and I can make it through again. And I was able to pass like step 2 the first time I took it, which I think kind of is the validation I needed to remind myself like, oh, you do know things, and like I did better than I thought I was going to. And so it's like step 1 isn't the end all be all. Like step 2 is definitely, in my opinion, the better exam. And like even when I took step 2, it felt like a completely different experience than step 1. Like I left that test center with peace. Like I left that test center being like, I'm pretty sure I passed. And at the end of the day, I gave everything I could, which is 180 from step 1, where I felt like I was like wanting to vomit and I for sure knew I failed. So yeah, I think that's just like a really big thing, is getting through it, getting through this experience. I'm hoping that this video helped somebody. Again, I was very honest from jump about the fact I failed because I knew it would maybe help somebody else to know that they're not alone in it, and to kind of demystify all of it. Because what we don't know is like there are program directors, APDs, chief residents, what have you, who have failed step 1. They may not talk about it, but they have. There are people who failed step 1 more than once. Like, you are not alone in going through this, and there are so many people who you may not even know yet who are in your corner and here to support you. So I'm just hoping that at least this video can serve as like an intro to like let people know that they're not alone in all of this. As you move forward, you know that you have it in you. Like you are gonna succeed and you're gonna be the doctor you're supposed to be. Because medicine is more than just like what grade did you get, or what score did you get on step, or like did you pass step, now that it's pass or fail. Like it's more than that. It's like, do you take care of patients well? Do you care about patients? Like that is what matters. So I hope that this was helpful, and if y'all need anything, like always feel free to reach out to me. Hope this helped. Bye y'all.